Right now on Morning News Now, the Roman Catholic Church has a new leader, and to the delight of many of the faithful in this country, he is an American Pope, Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost from Chicago, making history as the first American pontiff, taking the name Pope Leo XIV. White smoke billowing from the Sistine Chapel's chimney yesterday. That was the signal that the cardinals had made a decision in just 2 days, sparking joy among the many who knew the man before he was elected leader of the Catholic Church.
I have met this guy. I've talked to this guy. He is awesome.
But I just screamed. I said, Prevost, Prevost, it's really him. Now he's the Pope. But he's also a White Sox fan. He likes to watch baseball.
We're going to have a look at his rise from Chicago's South Side to the Vatican, and we'll speak with one of his friends, Father John Leiden. Plus, meeting on neutral ground. Officials from the U.S. and China travel to Switzerland this weekend. They'll speak face-to-face about tariffs just a day after the White House brokered what they're calling a major trade deal with the U.K. We will have the latest. Also this morning, push for peace. President Trump hinting at a potential deal to free the remaining Israeli hostages and start a ceasefire in Gaza ahead of his trip to the region. Comes as the enclave faces fresh attacks from Israel and marks its third month under a blockade of aid and supplies. And finally, later this hour, we are flipping the script. Palestinian-American comedian, actor, and director Mo Amer joins us. He's going to discuss season 2 of his award-winning Netflix series Mo. It's about a Palestinian refugee on the path to U.S. citizenship who finds humor in some of the most difficult situations. Good morning. Good to have you with us on a busy Friday. I'm Joe Fryer.
Lucky there, Friday. I'm Christine Romans in for Savannah Sellers this morning.
We're going to begin this morning with the morning after the white smoke clears. It was a historic moment at the Vatican where a new pope was picked to lead the 1.4 billion Catholics across the globe. Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost introduced himself to the world and to the assembled faithful in St. Peter's Square yesterday as Pope Leo XIV. He is the first American-born pontiff and is also a naturalized citizen of Peru.
In his first speech, Pope Leo emphasized the need for the church to build bridges, speaking both Italian and Spanish to the excited crowds below. His appointment was announced by that white smoke which billowed from the Sistine Chapel chimney a little over 24 hours after the conclave began. Bells rang through Vatican City, alerting the thousands of people waiting that the church has a new leader. Let's bring in NBC News correspondent Ann Thompson and NBC News Vatican analyst Deborah Lubov, who are live at the Vatican with more on this morning. Good morning to both of you. Ann, let's start with you. What a day. You were there at the Vatican when the white smoke appeared, announcing the election of this new pope. Tell us about those moments that followed.
You know, there was all this anticipation, Christine, because it was a ballot. It was an election that happened on the 4th ballot. So that was pretty quickly. And we wondered if it would be one of the front runners that we had talked about for a week or so. And then when Cardinal Mamberti came out on the loggia and said, Habemus Papam, we have a pope. And then he reads the name in Latin, and it was Robertum Franciscus Prevost. And I had my little Latin cheat sheet there, and I'm like, that's the American. And we all thought he was a long shot. How is this possible? And we double-checked because we didn't want to be wrong at such a crucial moment. And it was unbelievable because never in my lifetime did I ever think I would be here to see an American elected Pope, Christine.
And a Chicagoan from the South Side. I mean, Chicago. I'm personally a Cubs fan, but come on, Chicago baseball.
No, he's a White Sox fan. He's made that very clear. I had one of his friends here. We're at the Augustinian House here in the Vatican, and one of his friends, Father Joseph Farrell, I asked him to text Pope last night because supposedly he's a speedy texter if he was a White Sox fan or a Cubs fan, because that's crucial if you're from Chicago. And the Pope texted back one word: Sox.
There you go. So it has been officially confirmed. Next will be the pizza question. But Ann, I mean, talk about just the significance of having not just a Chicago Pope, but an American-born Pope. I mean, how surprised was everyone when he was the one who walked out onto the balcony?
Oh, I think shocked would be an adequate adjective or description. It is something we never thought would happen, in large part because the belief has always been that they would never give it to an American because America as a nation has too much power. We're a military superpower, an economic superpower, big influence in the arts world, and this would never happen. Plus, there was never really an American who had an international perspective, and that's what Pope Leo XIV brings. He unites 3 continents if you look at his background. He worked in North America, he worked in South America. In fact, as you mentioned, he is a citizen of Peru as well. And he worked in Europe, here in Rome. And I think it is that unity and that sense of having a global leader for a global church is what helped make him Pope.
Deborah, can you tell us a little more about his background, his leadership of the Order of St. Augustine, and why do you think the conclave chose him?
Well, I think it's fair to say he has it all. The only thing, as Anne had mentioned, was this fact that America being the superpower was like almost the only thing that would have possibly worked against him. But obviously they were that confident that he was the person, that it was a short election and they chose him. But certainly he has a reputation for being very brilliant, very intellectual, but also very pastoral. And he really is sort of a bridge builder. And we see that between his time in the United States, but his time in South America, and then also his experience in the Vatican itself. He was the prefect of the dicastery for bishops, a very important role where I know whenever I used to run into him around here, he always kept a very low profile. He was very humble. But when you see him come out, he's so ready to offer the faith and to show Christ's love for everyone. So I think everyone who's been seeking something different in the next pope are kind of finding it in him.
Deborah, talk about the name, Leo. Why did he pick that? What is the significance?
Well, I think here is where we see a bit of continuity with Francis. And in addition, even perhaps a little more of an intellectual aspect. But if we think back to the pontificate of Leo XIII, he had written the document Rerum Novarum and spoke about the rights of workers. So there is a certain attention that we definitely expect from Pope Leo XIV on social justice issues. But he kind of has that perfect moderate approach that probably the College of Cardinals was looking for at this time to sort of unify, where in the church not everyone was really seeing eye to eye for whether for one reason or another. And therefore, I think that kind of spoke to him in terms of an important name. And that was also a very long pontificate. He lived until age 93, so we'll see.
Yeah. And Pope Leo has already celebrated his first Mass this morning in this new role. What was his message today, Anne? And what will these first few days look like for the new pontiff?
He did, Christine, and it was the first time we heard him speak English as the Pope. When he gave his homily, he stood up and asked of his brother cardinals in the Sistine Chapel where he was elected, he asked them to walk with him, to spread God's message. And I think that's what you can see, that idea of accompaniment, which was a big focus of Pope Francis' papacy, is going to transition into Pope Leo's papacy.
And I think, could it possibly have been the first time any pope has went off the cuff in English to start their first papal mass?
I think
possibly.
Maybe.
I don't want to. I'm not going to say, but
times.
Yeah.
It seems likely, I would say. We'll have to do a little fact-checking just to make sure. Deborah, I do want to ask you, just how do the Pope's opinions on certain political, cultural issues, including immigration, LGBTQ+ rights, compare to those of Pope Francis, who was seen as so much more progressive? Is he someone who will carry on the legacy of his predecessor?
Well, certainly Pope Francis and Pope Leo XIV have in common that Jesus loves everyone. And we heard on the Loggia yesterday when he came out that God loves everyone unconditionally and that the church is a home for everyone. So I think there's going to be that continuity, and that's the message that he's going to be looking to convey. So I see continuity there for sure.
And I think especially on the issue of immigration, he has been, at least in his social media, critical of the Trump administration's approach. And I think you can expect to see more of that in the same way that Pope Francis was.
And there had been a Vatican document that was issued under Pope Francis about human dignity issues and immigration being among them and a variety of other ones. So I think that went kind of on both sides, issues that are important for conservatives and others for progressives, and they'll probably be kind of similar from that perspective.
Deborah and Anne, thank you both for kicking us off this morning. We do appreciate it.
All right, it's not just in St. Peter's Square where people are celebrating Pope Leo. Folks in his hometown of Chicago are cheering on the man from the South Side they know as Bob. NBC News correspondent Shaq Brewster has more reaction from the Windy City.
As the world welcomed Pope Leo XIV during his first appearance in St. Peter's Square, it was a more personal celebration back here in his hometown of Chicago.
This is beyond our wildest dreams.
Sister Barbara Reed knew Robert Prevost personally. She was there in Rome when Pope Francis elevated him to be a cardinal.
How are you processing this?
It's a little overwhelming yet, and as you can see, I'm still a bit speechless.
She was hosting a watch party at the Chicago school where he earned his master's in divinity.
What kind of person is he?
He's very warm, very inclusive, very intelligent.
These kids hearing the news during a visit to the city's Holy Name Cathedral.
It was so amazing to see him come out.
The new pontiff grew up in the Chicago suburb of Dalton. People here still know him as Bob. But it was in Peru where Father John Lydon lived and worked with him for 10 years.
Is it going to be hard for you to stop calling him Bob?
Yes, yeah, actually, when I get a chance to communicate with them, that will be hard to say Leo now.
Lydon is now working the same job the new pope held when he was studying in Chicago.
His birthday comes up in September. Every part of the parish wanted to have him for a birthday celebration because they felt very close to him.
He's well liked.
Very well liked.
Our thanks to Shaq for that report. We want to bring in someone you just heard from at the piece there, Father John Lydon. Good morning, Father Lydon. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's amazing to meet you in this important moment. First off, we have to ask, what was your reaction to seeing your friend walk onto that balcony yesterday? Do you ever think it would be him stepping out there?
No, well, good morning, and thanks for having me again. No, a real shock. I knew the qualities of the person and that he would be a great choice, God's choice. But because being an American, everyone thought that was kind of an obstacle. But I think he's the Pope of the Universal Church because of where he worked and where he lived. And he's just a great person and will be a blessing not only to the church, I think, to the world.
As Ariane Thompson pointed out just a moment ago, he's apparently an avid texter. He's a fast texter, I've read. Have you had a chance to text or speak with him yet since this momentous occasion?
I wrote to him an email, but I haven't got a reply yet. I'm sure he's inundated with all of that now.
He's busy.
I'm sure.
Right.
Tell us a little bit more about your friendship with Pope Leo. What's he like as a person? What kind of work did you do together?
Yes, we were in Peru together for 10 years. We lived in the same community and worked together as a team in our house in Trujillo, Peru, which is northern Peru. And we worked in seminary work and also in parish work. So he's a very outgoing person, relates very well to the people. The people loved him there. Very concerned with the poor. Our parish has a large area in southern Trujillo, which is a very poor part of the city. And he always wanted to make sure we had the proper outreach, and we had started soup kitchens there as well. So he has a love for the poor, which is a continuation of Pope Francis, obviously, and a very easygoing person. It's someone you would sit down with and watch television, and he liked to cook. He would cook pizza for the community. Back then in Peru, you could hardly ever get pizza. And so it was, he was just a humble person, doing washing the dishes and taking care of the house and cleaning like we all did. We're all one community.
We just asked the pizza question a moment ago. I mean, does he like a good Chicago deep dish, or what's his pizza of choice?
Yeah, well, certainly in Peru, it was thin because he had to make it for like 40, 50 people. And back then, ingredients were not common. Today, you can get pizza very easily in Peru, but back then, not so.
Let's just sum it up with this. Just what kind of leader do you think Pope Leo is going to be?
Well, I think he'll be a great pastor, a good shepherd of the church, He's committed. I think he picked the name Leo because it's connected to the Catholic social teaching of Leo XIII. So it's a continuation of that. I think he'll be a bridge builder. His first words were talking about the colonnade of St. Peter's, how it embraces everyone in the world. And he also said the church has to go out. He says the missionary church, which was one of Francis's themes as well. The church has to go beyond its walls of the buildings out into the world to announce the good news of peace. I think hope of peace. That was his first word. Yeah. Peace be with you all when he came out. So I think that's why I say it's not only a blessing for the Catholic Church. I think it'll be a blessing for the world.
Father John Lydon, so nice to meet you this morning. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me. God bless you all.
You too. All right, his journey to becoming Pope may have started in Chicago, but the impact of Pope Leo XIV's election is being felt all across the country, from cathedrals to classrooms. This is a moment of celebration, and it's also stirring a lot of deep emotions from coast to coast. Here's NBC News correspondent Rahima Ellis.
Leo XIV, it's Cardinal Prevost, he's American.
Jubilation for Catholics across the United States. After that stunning revelation, the new pope is one of their own. Catholic school students from Tennessee to Pennsylvania, jumping for joy at the news. Shock even among church leaders, including this bishop in Beaumont, Texas.
Oh my God, it's an American pope!
Social media buzzing over Pope Leo XIV and his Chicago roots.
We got a Chicago pope.
Oh my God, the Chicago guy! Shut up!
He's chosen the name Pope Leo. I'm wondering what that birth chart looks like.
Churches from San Antonio to Washington, D.C., ringing in the new Holy Father with a centuries-old tradition, a chorus of bells.
The bells started tolling as they are now, and it was just a very moving moment.
And in New York City, Catholics gathering outside the landmark St. Patrick's Cathedral.
I think it's a great time to have an American who's full of love and peace, as I heard he said in his speech over and over again.
Brian Kerwin saying his and the new Pope's paths crossed years ago. And your connection to him is through college.
Villanova, class in 1977. Hope he's at the 50th reunion, or else we're happy to go to the Vatican.
Near their alma mater in Philadelphia.
America Pope, that's pretty cool.
These diner patrons letting the news sink in.
I know a lot of people have left the Catholic Church. Hopefully this new fresh blood will just bring everybody together.
The moment must-see TV for this University of St. Thomas student in Houston.
My roommate texted me. We saw white smoke. I ran down from my dorm. This room right next to us was packed.
And across town, some parishioners at the Co-Cathedral of the Sacred Heart fittingly finding out during Mass.
You know, we're going through a tough period right now. A lot of people are struggling. So I'm hoping we can pray harder and make this a better world for everybody, and I'm excited.
Thanks to Rahima Ellis for that report. President Trump is striking an optimistic tone over this weekend's trade talks between U.S. and Chinese officials. It's the first step in what could be an easing of the tariff war between these two economic powerhouses.
Ahead of those talks, the president unveiled his first trade deal since imposing those widespread tariffs last month. This agreement with the United Kingdom, though nothing was signed and many specifics remain unclear. I think we're calling it a framework of a trade deal.
NBC News White House correspondent Von Hilliard joins us now with more on this. So let's start with this weekend's talks. Just how much could this meeting between the U.S. and China actually accomplish? Is there any chance we're going to see that 145% tariff on China come down if things go well?
Right. There's questions and skepticism over the extent to which it's actually trade negotiations. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has outlined this weekend is more of an opportunity for the Americans and the Chinese to, in his words, de-escalate the tariff standoff. Of course, it was the United States that imposed that 145% tariff on Chinese goods imported to the U.S., and China in return putting 125% tariffs on U.S. goods going to China. And so that is where we are very much at the very beginning stages of these talks. I want to let you listen, though, directly to President Trump yesterday from the Oval Office discuss the plans for this weekend.
I think that we're going to have a good weekend with China. I think they have a lot to gain. I do think they have far more to gain than we do, in a sense. We'd like to see China opened up so we can compete in China and, give people something that they've never had, access to something. That'd be great for the world.
Now, the president has said that he is unwilling to pull back from that 145% tariff until China shows signs of negotiating a trade deal. His U.S. Trade Representative, Jamieson Greer, as well as his Treasury Secretary, will be the two men representing the U.S. delegation in those talks in Switzerland beginning tomorrow.
Hey, Vaughn, tell us a little bit more about that UK trade agreement that we saw the president unveil yesterday. Let's talk through some of the main points of that deal and the early reaction to it.
Right. You said framework. You can call it a pact. It's not exactly appears to be a concrete deal, especially one that usually would require congressional authorization. We're still waiting for some details about exactly what these two sides agreed to. But the president yesterday in the Oval Office had on speakerphone Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, who was also praising the deal as being good for both sides. We know that the Brits have agreed, according to the two men, to allow greater exports of U.S. agricultural goods, including beef, the president repeatedly brought up, as well as ethanol, into the U.K. And in return, the United States lowering the tariff on British autos from 27% down to 10% for Rolls-Royce, for Aston Martin. These are some high-end luxury cars that brought actually some swift response from U.S. auto manufacturers who are pushing back against the decision. I want to let you just look at one statement in part here from the Matt Blunt, the president of the American Automotive Policy Council, who writes, "We are disappointed that the administration prioritized the U.K. ahead of our North American partners. Under this deal, it will now be cheaper to import a U.K. vehicle with very little U.S. content than a USMCA-compliant vehicle from Mexico or Canada that is half American parts. This hurts American automakers, suppliers, and auto workers." Of course, this White House wanted to use this framework as an indicator to other countries and entities, the EU, Canada, Mexico, that the U.S. is willing to negotiate and willing to pull back some tariffs if they get some concessions in return. It bears to be seen what exactly those other negotiations are looking like with the White House.
Vaughn, away from trade, the president named Fox News host Jeanine Pirro as interim U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia, another Fox News host. This is someone viewers probably know from television, including SNL, where there's a famous impression of her. Why did the president pick her for this role?
Well, he had to pull the nomination effectively of Ed Martin, somebody who had defended January 6th defendants in court, somebody who is a big Stop the Steal proponent. After the 2020 election, there was a Republican senator, Tom Tillis from North Carolina, who said that he would be unwilling to support his nomination to be the permanent D.C. U.S. attorney. This is a big position here in the nation's capital. And so he pulled that nomination and in turn announced Jeanine Pirro, who for the last 2 decades has been a host on a show called The Five on Fox. She was named, we should note, in a defamation lawsuit that ultimately led to a nearly $800 million settlement from Fox. She had pushed multiple monologues and conspiracy theories about the 2020 election 3 days before the January 6th attack. She compared this to an American revolutionary moment. She is somebody who has not practiced as an attorney for 20 years, but somebody who clearly the president trusts to carry out through the Department of Justice the sort of work that he wants to see out of the D.C. Attorney's Office.
All right, Vaughn Hilliard, a lot to cover. Thank you.
Okay, we are wrapping up this week just like we started with more rain.
Yeah, that's right. Showers still moving through the Northeast, going to carry into the weekend. Meteorologist Michelle Grossman is here with the forecast. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Happy Friday. Yeah, you need the umbrella today in the Northeast. We're going to see rain, and we're seeing it now heavy at times throughout this Friday, but we're going to see a nice end to the weekend. So that's a bright light lining there. 60 million people under flood alerts. Where you see the green, that is a flood alert, and that's because we're saturated from the earlier week's rain, and we're going to see some heavy rain. We're seeing that now with those brighter colors, the reds, the oranges, the yellows, sort of spinning over the same spots that got the rain on Monday and Tuesday, but it's moving pretty quickly. So the latest model is showing us that we could actually clear later on tonight, especially into the early part of Saturday. But in the meantime, we could see 1, 2, even 3 inches of rain. Some spots could see an inch an hour, and that would certainly lead to flash flooding. So that's a story in the Northeast, parts of the Mid-Atlantic, New England. And then we're looking at some severe storms, the risk for them later on this afternoon in the Southeast. We're looking at a flood risk also along the Gulf Coast states. We're looking at some, excuse me, losing my voice here. We're looking at wet weather in the Southeast, also along the Gulf Coast. A flood risk also because we were so saturated, too, earlier in the week. So we look at the severe weather threat later on this week. Later on today, we're looking at up to an inch of rain in some spots. And then as we go throughout the next couple of days, we could see 10 inches by Tuesday. So again, a deluge of rain over the next several days. Could see some hail with any of these storms. The tornado risk is low. That's the good news, but it's not zero. And we'll see winds gusting up to 60 miles per hour. So where you see the yellow, that is the likeliest spot for seeing some severe weather. That continues tomorrow. We're looking at a really rocky weekend in the Southeast, guys, with that severe weather and that rain falling. Again, could see up to 10 inches over the next several days there. Back to you.
All right, Michelle, thank you so much.
All right, much more to come here on Morning News Now. Later this hour, a teen with taste. We go to the Twin Cities for a look at the young entrepreneur who's making her mark on the food scene at the Mall of America.
Up first, ceasefire in sight, what we're learning about negotiations for a hostage deal in Gaza as President Trump prepares to make the second major overseas trip of his new term. You are watching Morning News Now.
All right, we're back now with the latest in the Israel-Hamas war. On Thursday, Israeli airstrikes on Gaza killed at least 100 people, including children. This according to the Palestinian Ministry of Health, which is controlled by Hamas. These airstrikes come as the enclave is on the brink of a potential famine due to an Israeli blockade on food that's entered its third month.
Here in America, President Trump is promising that we'll soon learn more about a new proposal for a hostage release and ceasefire deal in Gaza. He is preparing for his trip to the region, which is slated for next week.
There's a lot of talk going on about Gaza right now. You know that, right? So you'll be knowing probably in the next 24 hours.
NBC News international correspondent Hala Garani joins us from Tel Aviv with the latest. Hala, good morning. The President Trump's trip is set to visit the Middle East. As of now, he's not scheduled to stop in Israel, but how could that trip play a role maybe in advancing the elusive ceasefire and hostage deal?
Well, as you mentioned there, Christine, President Trump said that within the next 24 hours, though we haven't heard from him since, there would be some sort of announcement regarding a ceasefire deal. And that ceasefire deal couldn't come soon enough for the Palestinians inside the besieged enclave. You mentioned in the intro that since March 2nd, no food, no supplies, no medicine has entered the Gaza Strip. And Palestinians are sounding the alarm. They are saying that they are on the brink of famine. The Bakeries Association inside of Gaza has said that essentially all bakeries are closed because there is such a shortage of fuel and flour. We heard from Mike Huckabee, who is Donald Trump's new ambassador to Israel. He is promising some sort of framework to get aid in. He's saying President Trump wants aid to get back into Gaza. He didn't go into detail, though. He did mention that the Israeli military would not be involved in distributing that aid. That had been a major cause for concern for humanitarian organizations who said that that would go contrary to international law, that a party to the conflict should not be allowed to control the distribution of aid and food. And you mentioned attacks on Gaza City, over 30 people killed in essentially what looked like a market street with cafes and restaurants. We saw very gruesome footage of children that appeared dead and people still sitting at tables that also appeared dead, Christine and Joe.
Hala, real quick, we want to ask you about Israel's blockade on food and aid to Gaza now entering its third month. A spokesperson for the World Food Program told NBC News this week that a famine had not yet been declared, but conditions are clearly getting worse. Any sense aid will begin to flow anytime soon?
Well, it depends on what Mike Huckabee promised, and that is the U.S., it seems, putting pressure on Israel to allow aid in. These crossings have been closed, completely sealed. NGOs aren't able to send staff. Food is not going in. We have personally spoken to people inside the Gaza Strip who are telling us they're only eating one meal a day, and these are in areas that are not currently under heavy bombardment in the way Gaza City is. So you can imagine for kids with cystic fibrosis, we've seen horrific examples of that, who need special milk, special nutrition. They are wasting away. There's one example of a child who now weighs 9 kilos. That's about 25 pounds because he hasn't been able to get his hands on the food and the nutrition that he needs. So this is really a dire situation. Whether we call it a famine or not, at this point almost, for people inside of Gaza, is just semantics. They are living something very difficult right now. Christine and Joe?
Hala Grani in Tel Aviv. Thank you, Hala.
Coming up, the future of food.
And next, we're sitting down with the founder of the wildly popular app that's holding companies accountable for their ingredients. How it's inspiring some to make major changes to the food you eat.
We're back with a closer look at the app that is quietly shaking up grocery store shelves. It is called Yuka, a free app that lets users scan a product's barcode, instantly seeing how it scores for nutrition, additives, and overall health.
Launched in France in 2017 and in the U.S. 3 years later, Yuka now has 68 million users globally, with an average of 25,000 new U.S. signups every day. At the start of May, it hit #1 in Apple's health and fitness category. And it's not just consumers paying attention now. Food companies are now feeling the pressure, too, with some already reformulating products to score better.
This morning, we are joined by Julie Chapone. She's the CEO, co-founder and CEO of Yuka. Good to have you with us because so many people are talking about this. First, just explain the scoring system for us, how it works, how you differentiate say a 15 from a 90.
Yeah, so the rating system for food products is based on 3 criteria. The first criteria is the nutritional quality of the products. So for that, we base our analysis on the Nutri-Score, which is a food labeling system adopted in 7 European countries. And it considers calories, sugar, salt, protein, fiber, fruits and veggies. And the second criteria is the presence of food additives in the products. And for that, we rely on the latest scientific research. We have a scientific team which takes into account all comprehensive expert reports and independent studies. And the last criteria is the nutritional quality, the organic quality of the product. So we have these 3 criteria: nutritional quality, additives, and organic dimension.
So 25,000 new signups a day in the U.S., that's amazing growth. What do you think is fueling that?
Well, I think over the past years, consumer distrust in the food industry has been steadily rising with all the food scandals and product recalls and documentaries like Rotten on Netflix. And I think that all of these have shown that there is a problem in the food industry, and these have fueled consumer distrust. So Yuka has come to answer this question to what are we actually consuming, what's actually in the products we are buying daily.
Yeah, going beyond the food label. I mean, there's the label there.
Right.
But there's also
none of us read, let's be honest. Very few of us read. So step 1 is obviously you want to give people information, but what seems to be happening is there are actually companies that make food that are changing how they make the food, right? I mean, talk about that. Is there an example that stands out to you?
Yes, that's definitely one of our mission, because the first mission is to help consumers make better choices for their health, but the second mission is that all these consumers, by changing their purchasing habits, can push manufacturers to improve what's in their products. And especially in Europe, many manufacturers have been reformulating their products thanks to the app. There is this striking example, this big supermarket chain called Intermarché in France, which has reformulated 900 products by removing 142 additives thanks to the app. And it's now coming to the US. We are now contacted daily by manufacturers in the U.S. that are trying to understand their rating and trying to understand how they can do better.
Wow. Some critics say, nutrition critics say, it's just too simple to put it all in just one number. That's oversimplifying it, and maybe that's not what consumers need. What do you say to that?
Well, nutrition is a very complex field, so no single score can capture all the elements, all that come into nutrition. But the objective of Yuka is to give a clear and straightforward information to help make better decisions. However, we very encourage people to go beyond the app, because making healthier choices is not just about individual products. It's about understanding the big picture of nutrition. And for that, we are also sharing a lot of insight in our blog. We have a blog that reaches 3 million readers each month. And we share a lot of the insights about nutrition and also recipes, and it's totally free. So yes, I really encourage people to go also beyond the app.
The app should be a starting point there.
Yeah,
All right, Julie,
definitely.
good to have you with us this morning.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll be right back with all the news you need to know this Friday morning. You're watching Morning News Now. Beneath the glittering lights and luxury casinos in Las Vegas is a hidden world underground. It's a stretch of tunnels spanning hundreds of miles underneath the Vegas Strip, where hundreds are living in the dark. And as NBC News Now anchor Morgan Radford reports, the community makes up just a fraction of the growing homelessness crisis here in the U.S.
How long have you been in this tunnel?
In these tunnels? About 5 years, since COVID.
For a 39-year-old man who wants only to be known as Tree, this is home.
They had one homeless shelter that was overran, and I just followed the tracks and ended up down here.
That place, a network of tunnels stretching hundreds of miles, originally meant to divert rainwater, and now home to an entire underground population, all living just a few feet under the bright lights of the Las Vegas Strip.
How many people do you estimate are living here right now?
Approximately 12 to 1,500.
So we are 3 feet
Caesar's Palace.
beneath Caesar's Palace on the Las Vegas Strip.
You said it yourself. You've been here many times. You would never even know it was here.
I feel like I've spent so many times looking up at the lights, I have never once looked down.
Rob Banghart works for Shine a Light, an organization that helps guide people out of homelessness through services like addiction treatment, mental health care, and access to housing. He comes here with a team of caseworkers every Saturday, hoping to reach people like David.
Does it ever get hard to be in the dark for so many hours?
No.
No? You get used to it?
Yeah.
Rob was addicted to a number of substances and says he's now been clean for nearly 7 years. This is a world he once knew firsthand.
I was underground for about 2.5 years. I had found somewhere that I could go and be left alone and not bothered and not have to worry about the direct sun or the wind or the randomness, right? And there was a lot of chaos in my tunnel too, but it was like the devil I knew.
A devil in the darkness.
Aaron, can you turn off that light so people can really feel just how dark and still it is down here? Okay, turn it on. Yeah, I mean, that is powerful. That's meaningful.
Yeah.
The choice or the circumstance that would bring you to this level of darkness, of desperation, of solitude.
We've made them feel so not a part of that they retreat underground because it's that guilt and shame, like just walking around. I haven't showered in a year. I haven't shaved. Yeah, you feel, I lived in the same world as you, but not the same society.
Nationwide, the latest data shows more than 771,000 people experienced some kind of homelessness in 2024.
We want homes for the homeless.
A nationwide crisis playing out from New York,
Do not throw away my belongings.
where an increase in evictions and an influx of asylum seekers has strained shelters.
You gotta go!
To Hawaii, where a devastating wildfire affected thousands.
Everyone I know is now homeless.
The Trump administration has attempted to freeze some of the $5 billion allocated in 2021 for homelessness assistance. NBC News reached out to the White House for comment, but did not receive a response by deadline. Rob worries recent cuts in federal funding will jeopardize services for people like Jay, who says he's lived in the tunnels for 13 years.
Why did you choose to live down here instead of live on the surface?
It doesn't matter where you go, you can't be there. I just try to stay out of sight, out of mind. So this is more out of sight and out of mind than up top.
Do you want to go back to the surface?
It doesn't even matter. I mean, I have no. Yeah, I just don't care.
A life in limbo, hidden in plain sight.
Wow. Our thanks to Morgan Radford for that powerful report.
Let's get to some money news now this morning. And another story, tech company is slimming down its global staff.
CNBC's Silvana Henao joins us now with more on that and other Wall Street headlines. Good morning, Silvana.
Hey, Christine. Hey, Joe. Good morning and happy Friday to you. Well, let's start with Panasonic, which plans to cut 10,000 jobs worldwide as it tries to boost profits. Now, the company, which is a major supplier of batteries to Tesla, says half the cuts will come from Japan and the rest overseas. Panasonic has a significant presence in North America with headquarters in Newark, New Jersey, and it plans to streamline operations and trim back in some businesses such as industrial devices and TVs. Well, you can now submit claims for a piece of Apple's $95 million Siri spying settlement. A class action lawsuit was filed in 2019 alleging Apple violated users' privacy by recording private conversations overheard by Siri without their consent, and those recordings were then passed on to third-party advertisers. Now, if you're eligible, you can submit a claim for up to 5 Siri-enabled devices until July 2nd, and the settlement payouts are capped at $20 per device. And New York City is warning fewer foreign tourists will visit the Big Apple this year because of President Trump's tariffs and immigration policies. So the city now estimates it will welcome 12.1 million foreign travelers. That's down from a previous forecast of 14.6 million. And that's expected to hit the city's economy as international visitors, well, they typically stay longer and they spend more money than domestic travelers, guys.
Big drop there. All right, Silvana, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Staying on Money News, this week is National Small Business Week, and we wanted to bring you a story first reported by my good friend, KARE 11 reporter Boyd Hoopert in the Twin Cities about a special entrepreneur who is making big-time moves.
Yeah, Eden Esparza set up her business, Eden's Cake Pops, and her products are popping so much that earlier this year she became the Mall of America's youngest food vendor at just 14 years old.
Eden and her mom, Sharon Esparza, are both joining us now from my home state of Minnesota. Good to see both of you. We love this story so much, especially here in Small Business Week. Eden, let's just jump right in. I mean, this started, when you were 11 with a cold call to the Mall of America. Tell us about that.
Well, it was nerve-wracking considering I didn't know anything about the food industry at the time or how to start a business, but I saw my family create these businesses, and I knew that when I called Mall America that they cared about stories and memories and consumers, and that's what made me really want to call them. And I'm so grateful for Barb Ross-Hayes, the foods manager at Mall of America, for answering the phone and calling me back and mentoring me through this entire process.
Sharon, describe what it feels like to see your daughter accomplish so much at such a young age.
Yeah, her dad and I are so surprised and astonished because, her determination, first of all, and then her follow through and hard work. We are really astounded at how she does these.
Eden, it's clear your cake pops are pretty special. I wish you were both here in person right now so we could just sample, just because we probably should. But talk about, you started baking with your mom and your grandma. How did they inspire you?
Well, my grandma has dementia and Alzheimer's, so I was very little when she stopped baking, but my mom would carry on her recipes, and I grew up eating things like butter cake, her chocolate espresso cake, and that really influenced me to start trying out my own recipes and start trying out baking. And the base for all my cakes are my grandmother's butter cake, actually. So.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys have an entrepreneurial gene here because your son, right, Sharon, and Eden's older brother, Ethan, also got a young start in entrepreneurship, selling lemonade. Where does the family business bug come from?
I'm not sure. I think, we've always taught them work hard, but enjoy what you do also. And so both of them, they really think out of the box, and their dad and I, we're very proud of them.
Eden, you are proof that you're never too young to chase your dreams. What is your advice to other young people, your age and younger, who are interested in being small business owners or just doing something that they're passionate about?
Never be afraid to make that call or to get that quote from that company like for shipping those type of things, because if you don't, you could be missing on something really big. And so just follow your dreams, do research, and really enjoy what you do.
And Eden, before we go, tell us, what's the best cake pop flavor on your menu right now? And do you have any plans to expand this business one day?
So I do have plans to expand the business, and personally, my favorite flavor is the purple velvet one. The best seller is the vanilla one, but my favorite is the purple velvet one, and that is a very rich, more chocolatier flavor, and it has a green coating, so more of that like 90s Nickelodeon slime green color, and then orange nopperellis on top.
Nice. That sounds really good. It does. Eden, Sharon, thank you both for taking some time to speak with us this morning. Congratulations on everything.
Thank you
for having us.
All right, and stay with us.
Morning News Now. We'll be right back.
We are back with another installment of our series, Flipping the Script, where we speak with people in the entertainment industry who are shining a light on diversity. This morning, we are joined by Palestinian-American comedian and actor Mo Amer. Mo is currently taking his stand-up tour on the road in a tour called El Oso Palestino. He's also the star and co-creator of the Peabody Award-winning Netflix comedy show, Mo. Now, that series is loosely based on Mo's experience as a Palestinian refugee in the U.S. Season 2, which came out at the end of January, picks up with Mo. Of course, he's stranded in Mexico as he desperately tries to get back to his family in Texas for an asylum hearing. Take a look.
This is your ankle monitor. This particular model has caused some electrocution issues, but it's only for a minority of our customers.
I'm sorry, did you say electrocution?
You said customers.
Patience is a virtue, Hamoudi.
You screwed up big time.
Everything I've been through.
Got something to say to me? You're a damn fraud.
I thought things would be different.
The world will always try to tear us down. And when they do, we smile. Because we know who we are.
And Mo Amer is here with us now. Congratulations on all of the show's success. It is so funny, but it also has just so much heart, which I think is exactly what you're going for here, right?
Thankful. Yeah. I mean, it's impossible to avoid the drama in such a subject matter. You know, we are grounded as a comedy series, of course, but like I said, it's impossible to avoid.
This is based on your own personal story, right? I mean, it took you 20 years searching for asylum. Is
Correct,
that right?
correct. So searching out there in America.
Was it maybe the right
Where
word?
is the green card and passport? Would it please land here, please? No. Yeah, it took me 20 years to get my citizenship. Yeah, to finally, get a U.S. passport. Correct.
What I think is great about this show is it's your story, but it really reflects the story of so many other refugees and immigrants who come to this country. And that was important to you, wasn't it?
No, absolutely. You know, I think that you see all these images in the news, and you just see people on boats and ships or whatever method they're trying to, come to a new country and create a new life for themselves, where we actually go into it in detail and see what it actually takes to get your asylum, to get your green card, or just to have any semblance of normalcy in your life, So that's something that I really wanted to approach, and especially in season 2, to see all the different factors that he has to go through, but also show how privileged he is in his status as well. Even though things not great for him, it's always worse for someone else.
And I think what's key is that you've said there's nothing else like this on TV or streaming. Like, you weren't seeing this story being told.
Well, it's never been done. It's literally never been done. It's the first ever television show starring a Palestinian family created by a Palestinian. And it's the first narrative sitcom to ever be filmed out of Houston, Texas, which is wild to say out loud, considering Houston has such a immense talent base that have come out from Travis Scott and Beyonce and Lizzo and so many actors and writers and whatnot. And for it never to have a narrative sitcom is also really special and unique, considering it is the most diverse city in America.
You started writing
Eat that, New York.
There you go. Take that. Yeah. You started writing season 2 around the time of October 7th. And I think you wrestled with whether it should be addressed in your show, but ultimately made a very intentional decision not to talk about that and then what's happened in Gaza since.
Yeah, it wasn't really about talking about that subject matter. Again, it's we're grounded in a comedy show, right? That's number one. Second of all, there's a whole year that will go by before the show even airs. So many things are unfolding. Third of all, there's so much people don't even know about what was life actually there pre-October 7th. And the biggest thing for me is I wanted the family to go back. And if it was a post-October 7th world, they certainly wouldn't be able to do so. So that's another reason. And then, again, we're a comedy, and every time I started attempting to write in a post-October 7th world, it really just took over the entire storyline, and you didn't really know anything about the characters, and it became really didactic. And I think as a great storyteller, I really believe great storytellers allow the characters to do the talking.
You did take the story to the West Bank. I understand you were only able to shoot maybe some exteriors and things there, but how important was that to you to include that?
Oh, it's so important. You know, it's literally my family's village that's showcased in the show. We're from Burin, which is essentially it's a sub-neighborhood next to Nablus, and it was super important. It's my actual grandparents' house. It's my family. It's my cousins there. It's all part of that. It's archival for me. You know, it's the viewers who know will understand that this is real and authentic. And the entire process I took very, very seriously. Whether it's something in Houston or something in Palestine, I really made sure that it was accurate and correct, because I go on the road and I see fans all the time, and I don't want them to yell at me because I did something wrong. But no, it was absolutely crucial to go there and to see what life is like in a pre-October 7th world, but more so for all those reasons that I stated earlier, that it made it really problematic from a storytelling perspective.
We have like 15 seconds here, but you are touring with comedy right now.
Yes.
How much do you love that?
Oh, it's the best. It's the greatest art form on earth. I feel like it's the last free art form, to be honest. It's become a really sad world now. It's so I love stand-up. El Oso Palestino tour. I got 4 shows at the Town Hall here in New York City, and then we'll keep it going. New dates just went up. We just keep adding dates. I think we're going to take it all the way through December.
Congratulations on everything. So Mo Amer, we appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me. Flipping the script, y'all.
There you go. That is going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now, but stay with us. The news continues right now.
Right now on Morning News Now, hitting the ground running, the American Pope, Leo XIV, already hard at work this morning, guiding followers through his inaugural Mass. Mere hours after he was introduced to roaring crowds at the Vatican and across the globe yesterday. But who is the man now at the helm of one of the world's most influential religions? We've got team coverage as the Catholic Church enters a historic new era. Also this morning, face-to-face, a critical trade summit with China taking place this weekend. President Trump optimistic, now saying he's open to scaling back those massive tariffs on one of America's largest trading partners. It comes amid fresh concern from the big 3 automakers on Mr. Trump's highly touted New Deal with the UK. We're covering it all. Plus, later in the hour, we're digging into the future of food with a groundbreaking app that's shaking up the way some of us shop at the grocery store. It's simple. You scan a barcode and get a score based on how good the item is judged to be. We'll sit down with the CEO who says some big companies are already taking notice and trying to get their numbers up. And if it's Friday, that can only mean one thing. Grab your morning popcorn, because we've got your ticket to the latest and greatest from the world of Hollywood and beyond. It's everything you simply can't miss this weekend.
With a rainy weekend in store for some of the country, that might be some good news.
Right.
Good morning. Good to have you with us on this Friday. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Christine Romans, in for Savannah today. We begin this morning at the Vatican, where the newly elected pontiff is already performing his duties as the new leader of the Catholic Church with a morning mass. Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost introduced himself as Pope Leo XIV yesterday from the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica. He is the first I can't even believe I'm saying it, American-born Pope.
His appointment was announced just over 24 hours after 133 cardinal electors were sequestered in the Sistine Chapel for the conclave. White smoke billowed from the chimney of the Sistine Chapel, and bells rang through Vatican City, alerting the thousands of people waiting and the 1.4 billion Catholics across the world, telling them all a new pope was elected. We have a team standing by with more on Pope Leo, including someone who knows him personally, but we are going to begin with NBC Nightly News anchor Lester Holt, who was at the Vatican during this exciting announcement. Lester, good morning.
Good morning. On this first day of his papacy, Pope Leo demonstrating he is a man of the people, delivering the homily at Mass this morning. Part of it in English, we should note, as the faithful bask in the moment of his election to Pope and the history that they were here to witness. This morning, new Pope Leo XIV already at work, celebrating his inaugural Mass under the frescoes of the Sistine Chapel with the cardinals that elected him as the first American Pope in history.
And I know I can rely on each and every one of you to walk with me as we continue as a church as a community of friends of Jesus, as believers.
Overnight, a glimpse of his first evening as Pope Leo, greeting Vatican officials, getting out of his car to mingle, even signing his new name in a child's book. Earlier in the day in St. Peter's Square, after that white smoke billowed, an ecstatic crowd in the tens of thousands erupting as Leo emerged onto the balcony, addressing the crowd in fluent Italian and Spanish.
La pace sia con tutti voi.
Delivering a message of peace, calling on the world to build bridges. This seems like something that's going to be very hard to top in your lives.
You know, you'd say once in a lifetime experience. I think it's a once in a thousand lifetime experience.
Before he came out, Pope Leo changing into his new vestments and pausing for a moment of prayer after mixing with the cardinals who made this surprising choice. The 69-year-old was born in Chicago, educated at Villanova, and spent much of his life outside of the U.S., mainly in northern Peru, where he worked as a missionary, becoming a bishop and the head of the Augustinian order, then called back to Rome by his predecessor, Pope Francis, who appointed him cardinal in 2023. The two sharing a close relationship.
I have to say, Pope Francis is an incredible guy to work with.
He is also a modern pope, active on social media. As a cardinal, he appeared to criticize both President Trump and Vice President Vance, recently posting the headline, "J.D. Vance is wrong. Jesus doesn't ask us to rank our love for others." Nonetheless, the president praising the election of an American.
What greater honor could there be?
Now, many Catholics wondering what changes he will bring. Leo choosing traditional robes for his first appearance, but choosing a significant name, signaling reform and championing the poor. Americans and the world watching as the new pope looks to the future. Now, as you might imagine, there is demand for souvenirs of this historic event, and already we saw some things hitting the street, including these rosary beads with a picture of the new pope. We should note the official merchandise, we're told by some of the merchants here, will be coming out probably later today, pending approval by the Vatican. That's a story from here. We'll send it back to you.
All right, Lester, thank you.
For more on this, let's bring in the former ambassador to the Holy See, Joe Donnelly, and president of Villanova University, Father Pete Donahue. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Okay, I want both of your reactions to just what yesterday was like. You go first. What was it like?
I saw him walk out, and I was like, this was never supposed to happen, right? An American. But he's so talented. He's so smart. He's got such a kind heart, a humble heart, and it was clear to everybody that if he wasn't the American, he would have been at the top of the list. And so it's just breathtaking, and he'll be an extraordinary leader, and his heart is for the poor.
Father Pete?
I was actually in Chicago. We were having an alumni event in Chicago.
What?
And I was in a restaurant with a bunch of alums, and they came out and they said his name, and I screamed in this place. It was incredibly surprising. We, the Augustinians, had talked about, oh, it could be possible, maybe, oh, it's a long shot, it's a long shot. So it was just overwhelming that he was actually chosen.
Everyone's trying to claim a piece of him. He really is a citizen of the world.
He really is. One of my favorite moments was when his brother, they had an interview with him last night, and he goes, he is not a Cubs fan.
Right.
He is a White Sox fan.
That is a very important
and
question.
Everybody on the south side of Chicago breathed a deep sigh of relief when they heard that.
Father Pete, I mean, you said you screamed probably first and foremost because he's an American pope, but also he went to Villanova, so I think it's an understatement.
And I know him. I was 2 years ahead of him at Villanova.
And what does that mean to you?
It was like having a friend. It was like my brother, my Augustinian brother, is now the Pope. It's just not something you think about ever happening.
Is it going to be an adjustment, like to call him Leo?
I yesterday I kept calling him Bob, and everybody kept saying his name's Leo now. I was like, yes.
It'll take a bit of an adjustment. He was just named a cardinal just a few years ago. 2 years ago. So what does that mean in terms of, I guess, how long he was a cardinal and how quickly he has been elevated to this top job?
I was in the position of ambassador when he was at his when he became a cardinal, and he actually receives a church in Rome, and it's the Augustinian Church. Mm-hmm. And it's an indicator of how much faith Pope Francis had in him, that Pope Francis recognized this is a star. This is someone who has an incredible moral compass. And his position was a critical one, working with the bishops. So everybody got to know him. And as talented and as strong as he is, he's the same guy who would hold the little kid's hand to walk him across the street.
So when they went into that conclave, he was known to many of the cardinals there.
Oh, yes.
Because of his other jobs and his duties.
He was really in charge of the office that selected bishops. So for the last 2 years, that's what he's been doing.
So a lot of bishops knew him.
Oh, a lot of people knew him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was, and also Francis elevated him very quickly. So he came in as cardinal, but then he elevated him to what they refer to as cardinal bishop, which is the highest ranking of the cardinals.
You know him. What type of pope do you think he is going to be?
I think he's going to be a very open-minded. He's going to listen to people. He's a wonderful listener. He's very intelligent. I think you heard it in his homily this morning. We walk together. I think his life as an Augustinian will certainly influence him. We put a lot of emphasis on building community.
What are those values of the Augustinian? How will an Augustinian pope maybe have different values?
Well, Augustine, the founder of the Augustinians, we refer to him as the Holy Father. His emphasis was always on friendship, building friendship, that we know God through friends, we know God through each other. That's how we discover who we are in those relationships. He wrote a lot about friendship, and he built a lot of energy around building community. And I think that will really influence Leo as he moves into this position. And he's already mentioned it a few times. Just in a brief time.
What do the next steps look like for him? I mean, this must be, I can imagine how many text messages the pontiff has had over the past couple of days that he's got to answer, but he's got to run a church, but also think about building a legacy. So what is the job like?
He will be the moral voice of the world. I think that's what's so important, is that from every corner, the African continent is growing the fastest in the church. And so wherever he would go right now, millions would turn out to hear him. And so in a world that has so many troubles, we now have a moral voice that the whole world can look to.
Fair or unfair, he is going to be compared to his predecessor, Pope Francis. How will he compare? How will he be similar? How might he be different from Pope Francis?
I think there will be some similarities. I think Francis chose him to be in the position that he was in. Because of the sense that he had a kinship with him, a friendship with him. He spent many years in Latin America. Francis was Latin American. They knew each other there. So they had a friendship with each other. But I think he will carve out his own life and carve out his own papacy. And there will be, it's difficult to predict exactly what he'll do, but he will be his own person. I firmly believe that. With
so much going on in the world involving poverty and migration, I expect we'll hear him weigh in on these subjects?
Oh, very much so. For many years, his ministry was with the marginalized. He worked with the poor in Peru. He was in an area of Peru that was not well off economically. And I think that will be his focus. And it has been, even with in the Augustinians, when he was the prior provincial of the Augustinians, he constantly talked to us about the poor, working with the poor and recognizing them, and what do we do and how do we respond to their needs. So,
if I saw one thing yesterday that really struck me, it was when he's standing on the balcony, how comfortable he appeared. You could see he's confident and he's comfortable and he knows what he believes. And that is what he's going to do as Pope.
He is 69 years, which I guess you could argue in Pope years is perhaps fairly young, right? I mean, he has the opportunity to be in this position and influence the world for a very long time.
He could be, yeah.
What do you think of that?
It'll be a long journey.
And the funny thing is, I was just thinking, I want to be around to see it all because I was born 2 weeks after he was born.
Oh,
so I want to be there for the whole thing.
You want to make sure you're there to the end for the next conclave.
That's right.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. What a wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
What a whirlwind couple of days for both of you.
It has been. Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, the new pontiff may be a White Sox fan, but all of Chicago is beaming with pride this morning now that one of the city's native sons is the first ever American pope. NBC News correspondent Shaquille Brewster has a closer look at Pope Leo's ties to the Windy City. Shaq, good morning. It was jubilation in Chi-Town yesterday.
Oh, that's a great word. Chicago is genuinely buzzing and has been since that big announcement yesterday. The new pope, not just born and raised here, but studied here, had extended work assignments here, and even has family still living in the area. Family who tells us they've been on the phone with him as recently as earlier this week.
This morning, a celebration in Chicago for a hometown hero, the newly elected Pope Leo XIV. Bells tolling in jubilation at Chicago's Holy Name Cathedral. And it's not just Catholics, but the entire city marking the historic moment.
Et Spiritus Sancti.
Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost was born in Chicago. Prevost is the youngest of 3 boys raised in a suburb just south of the city. His brother John says life as they knew it is over.
And I said, well, are you ready for this?
The siblings spoke the night before the conclave, even doing Wordle and playing words with friends together to help keep his brother occupied.
I said, did you watch the movie Conclave so you know how to behave? And he had just finished watching the movie Conclave. So he knew how to behave.
Others in Chicago know Prevost from his time at the Catholic Theological Union, where he earned his master's in divinity before being ordained as a priest in 1982, the seminary where he studied in disbelief.
You know the Pope personally.
I do. This is beyond our wildest dreams.
The shock extending just across the street to students now studying where Prevost once lived as part of the Augustinian order.
Having had a similar education to the Pope is a really incredible thing to think about.
Father John Lydon, who helps run the order, spent a decade with the new pontiff in Peru.
What kind of person is he like?
A very fine person, outgoing individual, very humble.
The Pope's oldest sibling, Louis, says he always knew his brother was special.
We used to tease him about being Pope when he was 6 years old and stuff. It's just mind-blowing that my brother was elected Pope.
But in the hours after Pope Leo's election, one critical question for Chicagoans remained. Which baseball team does he root for? The Cubs quickly claiming his fandom until his brother John confirmed where the Pope's real loyalties lie.
Whoever said Cubs on the radio got it wrong. It's Sox.
Guys, that last point has been a point of contention here in Chicago. Look at how seriously people are taking it. The Chicago Sun-Times pulling up this photo, digging it up from their archives. It's from the 2005 World Series. If you look in the top left corner there, that is the new Pope at the game. The stadium in the background, the White Sox releasing a statement saying that they already have a custom jersey and hat on its way to Rome. And by the way, his brother is saying he's also planning on hopping on a plane to Rome at some point today, though he's still trying to figure out how to get in touch with the new Pope.
And I heard, Jack, that it's a mixed household. His mom was a Cubs fan. His dad rooted for the Cardinals. Yeah. He fell to the Sox. I mean, that's so Chicago.
So Chicago, the split is real. And, you know, I'll tell you, people were questioning how he can be from the South Side, live in the South Side, and root for the Cubs. That was cleared up throughout the afternoon yesterday.
Now we know. Okay, Shaq Brewster, thanks.
We're going to switch gears now. We are following the latest developments in President Trump's global trade war. The president now says he is open to scaling back his massive 145% tariff on Chinese imports, posting on Truth Social today that an 80% tariff, quote, seems right. That message comes ahead of this weekend's high-stakes negotiations with China. NBC News senior White House correspondent Garrett Hake is following all these latest developments. Garrett, good morning.
Hey, Joe, it's sort of fitting that the president's getting a jump on this weekend because before he had even finished outlining the scope of this new deal with the United Kingdom yesterday, he was already being asked about China. And the Treasury Secretary will meet with his Chinese counterpart tomorrow in Switzerland for what amounts to the first proper negotiations between the world's 2 largest economies about how exactly to unwind the trade war already shaking both nations.
The first sign of a possible thaw this morning in the massive trade war between the U.S. and China. President Trump expressing optimism about talks set for this weekend in Geneva.
They want to make a deal very badly.
The talks aimed at diffusing tensions sparked in large part by the president's massive 145% tariff on Chinese imports. Asked whether he would consider lowering those tariffs if the talks go well.
You can't get any higher. It's at 145, so we know it's coming down.
5 weeks after unveiling his tariffs on top U.S. trading partners, the president touting the outlines of a new trade agreement with the UK, with final details expected to be worked out in the weeks ahead. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer joining by phone.
But I think it's really important that we've been able to get this deal over the line now.
The agreement will roll back U.S. tariffs on British cars, as well as steel and aluminum, of which Britain is not a major exporter. In exchange, the Brits agreed to open up access and lower tariffs for American companies selling beef, poultry, ethanol, and other products. But a 10% U.S. tariff on British imports will remain. In a rare joint statement, America's big three automakers say the agreement, quote, hurts them, adding, "We are disappointed that the administration prioritized the UK ahead of our North American partners." The president warning companies shifting production from China to other countries won't help them avoid high tariffs, like toy giant Mattel, maker of Barbie and Hot Wheels, which recently said it would move some production to India.
That's okay. Let him go, and we'll put a 100% tariff on his toys, and he won't sell one toy in the United States.
The president also brushing off concerns about rapidly slowing traffic at America's busiest shipping ports, even with thousands of jobs hanging in the balance for dock workers and truck drivers.
When I see that, that means we lose less money. That's a good thing, not a bad thing.
And the White House also making two notable personnel moves overnight. President Trump announcing he's appointing Jeanine Pirro, a current Fox News host and former judge and county district attorney, to be the interim U.S. attorney for Washington, D.C., after bipartisan Senate opposition forced him to pull his previous pick. The president also ordering the firing of the Librarian of Congress, Carla Hayden, overnight by email from the Presidential Personnel Office. It's not clear yet why Trump fired the Obama appointee who had 1 year left on her 10-year term, or who he plans to put in her place. Craig? Or excuse me, Joe. No worries.
I'll take the compliment.
It's been a long week.
Thank you. Yes, it has, Gary. Get some rest. Have a good one.
All right, I'm Savannah. I'll take it from here. Let's get a check on your Mother's Day weekend forecast with meteorologist
Al Roker. Al Roker is with us. Hey, Al.
I know, we're like twins. We always get confused, Al and I.
Good morning, Michelle.
All right, yeah, we have a few... Good morning, guys. So good to see you. And we are watching a few chances for rain across the country today. The Northeast wet once again. We started out the work week wet. We're going to end it wet as well. But the good news is we're looking at a better weekend in the Northeast, parts of the Mid-Atlantic, and also New England. Today, also looking at the chance for wet weather along the Gulf Coast into the Southeast. Severe storms are likely to in portions of Florida, especially eastern Florida and the eastern parts of North Carolina. But notice the rest of the country today looking nice and dry. We're looking at some warm temperatures in the Southwest into the Intermountain West and also portions of the northern plains. You see a little front too draped across the northern plains. We could see some showers and thunderstorms there and some showers too in portions of the Rockies. That is for today. Then we look towards the weekend tomorrow, Saturday. Most of the country is dry. We have a summer-like feel out west into the Intermountain West, also the northern plains into the 80s. The central and southern plains are warm too. But notice we're hanging on to that rain in parts of New England. So that's going to be a little slower to clear tomorrow. Most of the Northeast will clear later on tonight, the early part of the overnight hours, and then we're dry tomorrow. The winds are going to pick up, though, in the Northeast, but that rain does linger in the Northeast. Flooding is possible along the Gulf Coast into the Southeast. This is going to be a story over the next several days, not only today, tomorrow, but into Tuesday, because we could see 10 inches of rain falling in that area over the next 4 or 5 days. Now, looking at Mother's Day, we have more downpours where we expect into the Southeast with that front kind of draped in place, not moving much. So we're going to see some heavy rain, and that's going to lead to flash flooding, some flooding into the Carolinas and also parts of the Southeast. But the Northeast clears out nicely, really nice for Mom in the Ohio Valley, the upper Midwest and Midwest and northern, central and southern plains. And we're looking at some hot temperatures in the desert Southwest. That could spark some showers and thunderstorms there. Flood alerts are posted. 16 million people impacted in the Northeast, also New England today. So, guys, you need your umbrella as we head throughout Friday, but you can ditch it as we head towards Saturday in the Northeast. Looking nice, especially on Sunday. Back to you both.
All right, Michelle, thank you so much.
Much more to come on this Friday edition of Morning News Now. Later in the hour, we're going to introduce you to a teen with taste. She's a young entrepreneur who's giving the food scene at the Mall of America a bit of a pop.
First, after the break, from Villanova's sprawling Pennsylvania campus to the hallowed halls of the Vatican, Pope Leo XIV's historic rise through the ranks of the Catholic Church as he ushers in a new era of leadership. That is next. Stay with us.
All right, welcome back. The election of the first American-born pope is being celebrated at a Catholic school in suburban Philadelphia. You may know Villanova University as a college basketball powerhouse, but now it has a new claim to fame. NBC News correspondent Molly Hunter has more.
Hey guys, that's right. So much Nova pride around the world. One of the Villanova students we met right here in Rome this morning says his school may be the only one with a national championship and a pope now, but yesterday down in the square, total joy from everyone we met, and from the Americans, there was shock, then disbelief, and then jubilation. Take a look.
Americans celebrated the new pope across the world, but here in St. Peter's Square, the excitement was contagious. As Cardinal Prevost's name was announced in Latin,
Robertum Franciscum, Sancte Romane Ecclesiae, Cardinalem Prevost.
By fate, we were standing next to Chicago native Mary Fiorito in total shock.
He's from Chicago. That's where I'm from. He's from Chicago, South Side. Just as a Catholic, to have a new Holy Father, that's exciting enough. But then to find out that he's a Chicagoan as well, I could not believe it.
As 150,000 people flooded St. Peter's Square to bear witness, to catch a glimpse, Americans from all over stunned. Father Brian Chalaba from the Detroit area, like so many, never saw this coming.
Did you think you would see an American pope in your lifetime?
No, absolutely not. I think there's a great energy that's going to come from this that the church needs. I think that we're going to see people pay attention.
And for these best friends on their first day in Rome, there's pride.
What does it feel like to have an American pope now in this?
Proud, just very proud. I mean, just incredible.
It's going to be something that's incredibly unifying for us as a country. It's something we probably needed.
And among the thousands of Americans here in Rome rejoicing, students from Villanova feel a special connection.
It's just so unexpected. No one saw this coming. But, you know, it's so cool having a pope from Villanova.
Back at home at the Catholic University, the celebrations kicked off immediately.
We're so proud of our brother. To us, he was Bob.
Known as Bob, or Bobby Prevost, back in 1977 when he graduated, he stayed in close touch with that Philadelphia community. And yesterday, a former classmate sending out a personal invitation.
Bobby, you have to come to the class reunion. We'll have the biggest attendance of all time, or we'll go to Rome.
Not sure the new pope has time in his new busy schedule to go to a class reunion, but you never know, guys. And Matthew, the student we just met in that piece, says he's hoping for a graduation visit. He will be a senior next year. But for now, we will see the new pope deliver an Easter season blessing to the faithful in St. Peter's Square on Sunday. I'll send it back to you guys.
All right, Nova pride indeed. All right, thanks, Molly.
That would be quite the class reunion. All right, America is not the only country celebrating the newly elected pope. Pope Leo spent many years serving in Peru, including time as an archbishop. Well, now people in the South American country are reflecting on his deep connection to their communities and what his new role could mean for the future. NBC News correspondent George Solis has more.
As Pope Leo XIV introduced himself to the world,
A mi querida diócesis de Chiclayo en el Perú.
The Holy Father quick to highlight his ties to South America, speaking directly to his former diocese in Peru in Spanish. Though the new pope is from the United States, he has spent about a third of his life in South America and holds dual Peruvian citizenship.
Once the Holy Father began speaking in Spanish, what message did that send to all Latin America?
Okay, I think that he's telling us that he is in Rome, that he will be the Pope, but he will never forget his poor people in Peru.
Father Jose Luis Menendez of Miami, reflecting on the significance.
It's a wonderful blend. It's like a cocktail, and the cocktail has two things. One from my own country, one who serves my people also.
Peruvians today overwhelmed with emotion.
What was your reaction to seeing the Father?
Oh, para mí fue una gran alegría.
For me, it was a great joy, an emotional moment, this woman tells me, saying she was with her son, who broke out in tears. Then a young priest, Robert Prevost first came to Peru in 1985 as a missionary, where he spent 14 years supporting the community and spreading the beliefs of the Augustinians, the 13th century religious order founded by St. Augustine. He returned to Peru again in 2014 at the request of Pope Francis, becoming an administrator and eventually the Archbishop of Chiclayo, the capital city of the nation's northwestern Lambayeque region. His relationship with Francis, the first pope from the Americas, was a warm one.
I knew him when he was Archbishop of Buenos Aires. He's a man who, on the one hand, is very simple and very profound in his faith, but he's a hard worker.
Francis brought then Cardinal Robert Prevost to Rome in 2023 to preside over the Pontifical Commission for Latin America.
It's not coincidental that Pope Francis chose me. I've been a missionary my whole life, and I was working in Peru.
As the news of the new pope spread throughout the world, bells rang out in his beloved Peru.
Qué alegría, realmente es una alegría indescriptible saber que...
This woman in Lima, overjoyed by the announcement, she says she hopes Prevost will continue the legacy by Pope Francis, adding it's an indescribable joy to have a Peruvian pope. And in Chiclayo, residents gathering at the cathedral to celebrate their hometown hero. We wish him the best, this woman says. If he ever comes here, the hearts of all the people of Chiclayo will be open to him.
Sin duda ama al Perú.
The current bishop also offering his support, saying Leo wants to talk with the poor and the periphery, just as Francis did.
Our thanks to George Solis for that report.
All right, coming up, it might just be the future of food.
After the break, we're going to go one-on-one with the mind behind the wildly popular app that's inspiring some companies to make big changes to their products, all with a simple scan of a barcode. That is next. Stay with us. We're back with a closer look at the app that is quietly shaking up grocery store shelves. It is called Yuka, a free app that lets users scan a product's barcode, instantly seeing how it scores for nutrition, additives, and overall health.
Launched in France in 2017 and in the U.S. 3 years later, Yuka now has 68 million users globally, with an average of 25,000 new U.S. signups every day. At the start of May, it hit #1 in Apple's health and fitness category. And it's not just consumers paying attention now. Food companies are now feeling the pressure, too, with some already reformulating products to score better.
This morning, we are joined by Julie Chapone. She's the CEO, co-founder and CEO of Yuka. Good to have you with us because so many people are talking about this. First, just explain the scoring system for us, how it works, how you differentiate say a 15 from a 90.
Yeah, so the rating system for food products is based on 3 criteria. The first criteria is the nutritional quality of the products. So for that, we base our analysis on the Nutri-Score, which is a food labeling system adopted in 7 European countries, and it considers calories, sugar, salt, protein, fiber, fruits and veggies. And the second criteria is the presence of food additives in the products. And for that, we rely on the latest scientific research. We have a scientific team which takes into account all comprehensive expert reports and independent studies. And the last criteria is the nutritional quality, the organic quality of the product. So we have these 3 criteria: nutritional quality, additives, and organic dimension.
So 25,000 new signups a day in the U.S., that's amazing growth. What do you think is fueling that?
Well, I think over the past years, consumer distrust in the food industry has been steadily rising with all the food scandals and product recalls and documentaries like Water on Netflix. And I think that all of these have shown that there is a problem in the food industry, and these have fueled consumer distrust. So Yuka has come to answer this question to what are we actually consuming, what's actually in the products we are buying daily.
Yeah, going beyond the food label. I mean, there's the label there.
Right.
But there's
which
also
none of us read, let's be honest. Very few of us read. So step 1 is obviously you want to give people information, but what seems to be happening is there are actually companies that make food that are changing how they make the food, right? I mean, talk about that. Is there an example that stands out to you?
Yes, that's definitely one of our missions, because the first mission is to help consumers make better choices for their health, but the second mission is that all these consumers, by changing their purchasing habits, can push manufacturers to improve what's in their products. And especially in Europe, many manufacturers have been reformulating their products thanks to the app. There is this striking example, this big supermarket chain called Intermarché in France, which has reformulated 900 products by removing 142 additives thanks to the app. And it's now coming to the US. We are now contacted daily by manufacturers in the US that are trying to understand their rating and trying to understand how they can do better.
Wow. Some critics say, nutrition critics say, it's just too simple to put it all in just one number. That's oversimplifying it, and maybe that's not what consumers need. What do you say to that?
Well, nutrition is a very complex field, so no single score can capture all the elements, all that come into nutrition. But the objective of UCA is to give a clear and straightforward information to help make better decisions. However, we very encourage people to go beyond the app, because making healthier choices is not just about individual products. It's about understanding the big picture of nutrition. And for that, we are also sharing a lot of insight in our blog. We have a blog that reaches 3 million readers each month. Mm-hmm. And we share a lot of the insight about nutrition and also recipes, and it's totally free. So, yes, I really encourage people to go also beyond the app.
The app should be a starting point there.
Yeah,
all right, Julie,
definitely.
Good to have you with us this morning.
Thank you so much.
All right, we'll be right back with all the news you need to know this Friday morning. You're watching Morning News Now. Beneath the glittering lights and luxury casinos in Las Vegas is a hidden world underground. It's a stretch of tunnels spanning hundreds of miles underneath the Vegas Strip, where hundreds are living in the dark. And as NBC News Now anchor Morgan Radford reports, the community makes up just a fraction of the growing homelessness crisis here in the U.S.
How long have you been in this tunnel?
In these tunnels? About 5 years, since COVID.
For a 39-year-old man who wants only to be known as Tree, this is home.
They had one homeless shelter that was overran, and I just followed the tracks and ended up down here.
That place, a network of tunnels stretching hundreds of miles, originally meant to divert rainwater, and now home to an entire underground population, all living just a few feet under the bright lights of the Las Vegas Strip.
How many people do you estimate are living here right now?
Approximately 1,200 to 1,500.
So we are 3 feet
Caesar's Palace.
beneath Caesar's Palace on the Las Vegas Strip.
You said it yourself. You've been here many times. You would never even know it was here.
I feel like I've spent so many times looking up at the lights, I've never once looked down.
Rob Banghart works for Shine a Light, an organization that helps guide people out of homelessness through services like addiction treatment, mental health care, and access to housing. He comes here with a team of caseworkers every Saturday, hoping to reach people like David. Does it ever get hard to be in the dark for so many hours?
No.
No? You get used to it?
Yeah.
Rob was addicted to a number of substances and says he's now been clean for nearly 7 years. This is a world he once knew firsthand.
I was underground for about 2.5 years. I had found somewhere that I could go and be left alone and not bothered and not have to worry about the direct sun or the wind or the randomness, right? And there was a lot of chaos in my tunnel too, but it was like the devil I knew.
A devil in the darkness.
Erin, can you turn off that light so people can really feel just how dark and still it is down here? Okay, turn it on. Yeah, I mean, that is powerful. That's meaningful.
Yeah.
The choice or the circumstance that would bring you to this level of darkness, of desperation, of solitude.
We've made them feel so not a part of that they retreat underground because it's that guilt and shame, like just walking around. I haven't showered in a year. I haven't shaved. Yeah, you feel, I lived in the same world as you, but not the same society.
Nationwide, the latest data shows more than 771,000 people experienced some kind of homelessness in 2024.
We want homes for the homeless.
A nationwide crisis playing out from New York.
Do not throw away my belongings.
Where an increase in evictions and an influx of asylum seekers has strained shelters.
You gotta go!
To Hawaii, where a devastating wildfire affected thousands.
Everyone I know is now homeless.
The Trump administration has attempted to freeze some of the $5 billion allocated in 2021 for homelessness assistance. NBC News reached out to the White House for comment, but did not receive a response by deadline. Rob worries recent cuts in federal funding will jeopardize services for people like Jay, who says he's lived in the tunnels for 13 years.
Why did you choose to live down here instead of live on the surface?
It doesn't matter
well, you really can't be there. I just try to stay out of sight, out of mind. So this is more out of sight and out of mind than up top.
Do you want to go back to the surface?
It just doesn't even matter. I mean, I have no. Yeah, I just don't care.
A life in limbo, hidden in plain sight.
Wow. Our thanks to Morgan Radford for that powerful report.
Let's get to some money news now this morning. And another story, tech company is slimming down its global staff.
CNBC's Silvana Henao joins us now with more on that and other Wall Street headlines. Good morning, Silvana.
Hey, Christine. Hey, Joe. Good morning and happy Friday to you. Well, let's start with Panasonic, which plans to cut 10,000 jobs worldwide as it tries to boost profits. Now, the company, which is a major supplier of batteries to Tesla, says half the cuts will come from Japan and the rest overseas. Panasonic has a significant presence in North America with headquarters in Newark, New Jersey, and it plans to streamline operations and trim back in some businesses such as industrial devices and TVs. Well, you can now submit claims for a piece of Apple's $95 million Siri spying settlement. A class action lawsuit was filed in 2019 alleging Apple violated users' privacy by recording private conversations overheard by Siri without their consent, and those recordings were then passed on to third-party advertisers. Now, if you're eligible, you can submit a claim for up to 5 Siri-enabled devices until July 2nd, and the settlement payouts are capped at $20 per device. And New York City is warning fewer foreign tourists will visit the Big Apple this year because of President Trump's tariffs and immigration policies. So the city now estimates it will welcome 12.1 million foreign travelers. That's down from a previous forecast of 14.6 million. And that's expected to hit the city's economy as international visitors, well, they typically stay longer and they spend more money than domestic travelers, guys.
Big drop there. All right, Silvana, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Staying on Money News, this week is National Small Business Week, and we wanted to bring you a story first reported by my good friend, KARE 11 reporter Boyd Hoopert in the Twin Cities about a special entrepreneur who is making big-time moves.
Yeah, Eden Esparza set up her business, Eden's Cake Pops, and her products are popping so much that earlier this year she became the Mall of America's youngest food vendor at just 14 years old.
Eden and her mom, Sharon Esparza, are both joining us now from my home state of Minnesota. Good to see both of you. We love this story so much, especially here in Small Business Week. Eden, let's just jump right in. I mean, this started, when you were 11 with a cold call to the Mall of America. Tell us about that.
Well, it was nerve-wracking considering I didn't know anything about the food industry at the time or how to start a business, but I saw my family create these businesses, and I knew that when I called Mall of America that they cared about stories and memories and consumers, and that's what made me really want to call them. And I'm so grateful for Barb Ross-Hayes, the foods manager at Mall of America, for answering the phone and calling me back and mentoring me through this entire process.
Sharon, describe what it feels like to see your daughter accomplish so much at such a young age.
Yeah, her dad and I are so surprised and astonished because, her determination, first of all, and then her follow through and hard work. We are really astounded at how she does these.
Eden, it's clear your cake pops are pretty special. I wish you were both here in person right now so we could just sample, just because we probably should. But talk about, you started baking with your mom and your grandma. How did they inspire you?
Well, my grandma has dementia and Alzheimer's, so I was very little when she stopped baking, but my mom would carry on her recipes, and I grew up eating things like butter cake, her chocolate espresso cake, and that really influenced me to start trying out my own recipes and start trying out baking. And the base for all my cakes are my grandmother's butter cake, actually. So.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys have an entrepreneurial gene here because your son, right, Sharon, and Eden's older brother, Ethan, also got a young start in entrepreneurship, selling lemonade. Where does the family business bug come from?
I'm not sure. I think, we've always taught them work hard, but enjoy what you do also. And so both of them, they really think out of the box, and their dad and I, we're very proud of them.
Eden, you are proof that you're never too young to chase your dreams. What is your advice to other young people, your age and younger, who are interested in being small business owners or just doing something that they're passionate about?
Never be afraid to make that call or to get that quote from that company like for shipping those type of things, because if you don't, you can be missing on something really big. And so just follow your dreams, do research, and really enjoy what you do.
And Eden, before we go, tell us, what's the best cake pop flavor on your menu right now? And do you have any plans to expand this business one day?
So I do have plans to expand the business, and personally, my favorite flavor is the purple velvet one. The best seller is the vanilla one, but my favorite is the purple velvet one, and that is a very rich, more chocolatier flavor, and it has a green coating, so more of that like 90s Nickelodeon slime green color, and then orange brownies on top.
Nice. That sounds really good. It does. Eden, Sharon, thank you both for taking some time to speak with us this morning. Congratulations on everything.
Thank you
for having us.
All right, and stay with us.
Morning News Now. We'll be right back. Finally this hour, it's Friday, which means it's time for your weekly can't miss list.
All the movies, shows, and music that you need to see and hear this weekend.
Let's bring in entertainment journalist and pop culture expert Brian Balthazar, who joins us now with what we can't miss this weekend. And let's start with Fight or Flight. This sounds stressful and claustrophobic.
Absolutely, like many flights. Take a look. This is Josh Hartnett. He plays an exiled agent with a questionable hair colorist, and he's been sent on this plane. Look at, there's a chainsaw on the plane. That tells you everything you need to know about this movie. Okay, so he's been sent to identify a mysterious asset on the plane. It turns out everybody on the plane is a problem, and he needs to, take care of all of them. This is the advice I would give you. If you want to see this movie, but you don't want to be giving it away, watch 20 to 30 seconds of it and stop. Because, sometimes trailers play and you're like, I think I just saw it. You know what I mean? And so this is one. It's getting a good reaction from people. Okay. But I think if you like this kind of movie, watch 15 seconds or just see it without seeing the trailer. You got enough of it right now. You get the idea. But we'll be kicked.
I'm spending 7-8 hours on a plane tomorrow, so maybe I don't want to watch it.
Right, exactly.
You don't want to channel him tomorrow.
Exactly. All right. Shadow Force with Kerry Washington, kind of giving us that action movie, but a family twist.
Right. So Kerry Washington and Omar Sy, they are special forces operatives who fell in love, and that's against the rules. So they actually had to leave the Special Forces unit to protect their child. Now the rest of this unit is after them, and they are going to do their best to escape it. There's a little bit of a larger storyline going through there, but I'm going to leave some of it to the theaters. Now, here's what's interesting. A lot of this was shot in Colombia for that feeling that they got on that location. As we talk about the threat of tariffs, this is one of those movies that would be like, uh-oh, we can't recreate this necessarily, the exteriors in LA. So this is one of those things that studios are thinking about. Wait, sometimes it's just that we want that location more than we're saving money. Sometimes they want the vibe.
I can't wait to see that one. I love Kerry and I love Omar Sy. So great.
Yes.
And yet another musical remake, Romeo and Juliet, although they're flipping it Juliet and Romeo.
Right. It's different. It's fun. It's
hip. What are critics saying?
Critics are tough, right? But this is basically the target audience. Here's what, okay, let's look at a couple of these lines. At one point, Romeo sort of proposes by telling Juliet he wants to turn our prose into poetry. This screenplay is done in reverse.
Oh, that's a Minnow who I trust.
And the next one is, never was a film I'm more likely to forget than this of Romeo and his Juliet, right? Okay. Now, mind you, I will say the critics' rating is not great, but critics are, on average, 78% of critics are men between age 35 and 65. This movie is not for you. This movie is for teenage girls, probably targeting between 15 and 25.
So they'll be fine with it.
It's a musical. It's a jukebox musical, but not songs you recognize. It's actually original music. So I don't know if that works in its favor. Rebel Wilson is all over.
On Broadway, we have a jukebox musical called And Juliet.
Right,
so
it's not
Romeo
the same.
Juliet and Juliet, Juliet and Romeo.
They want you confused.
Pick your favorite.
They want you confused.
Okay, if you're going to stay indoors this weekend, which some people might because of all the rain, we've got Forever, based on a Judy Blume novel, and people are loving this.
Right. Did anyone here read Forever? Did you watch? Did you read Forever, the book?
I don't remember. I think I'm sure I've read everything.
It was a controversial book because it really took a real look at kind of teenage sexual awakening. In this particular series, it's focusing on a couple of black teens and it's getting incredible rave reviews, not only for the portrayal of the book, but also how it portrays black teens in America. This in particular particularly was shot in various locations of Los Angeles. If you know Judy Blume and you like Judy Blume, this is a great story, well told.
All right, a big favorite with some of our team, Poker Face, starring Natasha Lyonne's second season now. What do we expect?
It's so good. Okay, what I love about it's so good. I'm addicted to it. Self-contained episodes, and it harkens back to those one-off episodes where cool guest stars are on. And the list goes on. Cynthia Erivo, Katie Holmes, John Mulaney, Rhea Perlman, John Cho, Awkwafina, Richard Kind, Haley Joel Osment, and every episode has a story that has a beginning, middle, and end. There's some storylines that weave through the series. This is a great show. If you haven't watched it yet, watch season 1. You will watch the rest of it.
The studio's doing all these guest stars, too, which is absolutely hilarious.
And she is great in this, by the way, Natasha Lyonne.
Yeah,
she's great.
All right, Nona's. I love this. It stars Vince Vaughn, and this is based on a story I remember we told on NBC a couple years ago about the grandmas doing their grandma thing.
Right, so it's based on a true story of this guy whose mother passed away, and he wanted to honor her, so he opened a restaurant, and he wanted authentic Italian food. Who do you turn to than a bunch of Italian grandmothers? This really did happen, and everyone came to this real-life guide saying, you need to be a documentary, you need to be a movie. Finally, the movie is here. Lorraine Bracco, Brenda Vaccaro, Susan Sarandon, Linda Cardellini, Drea Matteo, Joe Manganiello. This is getting also great reviews as well. And it's a nice, heartfelt story. You don't see a lot of these small, heartfelt stories.
Overnight, Miley Cyrus surprised us overnight with a new song and a video.
Yes.
Already #1.
Right, More to Lose. This is from her upcoming album that we'll be seeing on May 30th called Something Beautiful. It's also part of a film inspired by the storytelling of The Wall, Pink Floyd's The Wall. No correlation in the story, but it's just a film that weaves stories and music together. And this is about reconciling the fact that your love is slipping away. Someone that you love, it's just not going to work out. And so this is a really interesting evolution of Miley Cyrus, who's always exploring her artistry.
Miley's the best. So are you, Brian. Thank you for joining us.
Have a great weekend, Brian.
Pshaw, thank you.
Before we sign off this hour, we do want to say a special thank you to the moms and the mother figures in our lives and the lives of our great team here, as well as our colleagues who are moms themselves.
See if you can spot the wonderful moms in this montage. And happy Mother's Day to everyone watching at home.
Love that. That does it for this hour of Morning News Now.
The news continues right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.